The Islanders have found a hidden gem. The World Junior Tournament is coming up, and as a result, we are now getting a look at what these rosters are likely going to look like for all the big teams. And on Team USA, the Islanders got a big surprise as their 7th round pick from this most recent draft is on the short list. Very exciting for Islanders fans in general. I love World Juniors tournaments. This is a great way to get a look at all the prospects in the NHL playing together and get a look at who really stands out. And for the Islanders to have representation in this tournament is especially exciting. And I especially love it when they have representation on the United States team because you can really root for these players. Of course, we're going to be rooting for Sean Aitchison to play well in Canada and Victor Eklund to play well for Sweden. But you especially want to see the USA boys do good in this tournament. And considering the United States is one of the stronger teams in this tournament, it's impressive that you have so many Islanders under consideration. 2 of the names are not really much of a surprise, especially when it comes to Cole Eiserman. Of course, he's going to be representing Team USA again. And as we're going to talk about a little later when we discuss Cole Eiserman, the big question here is what role is he going to get on this team? Last year, he was more of a 13th forward, only playing in select opportunities. This year, it sounds like he's going to be more of a regular, and that's exactly what you want to see as an Islander fan. You want to see a more well-rounded game. But you also have 2 other Islander players on this short list, one being Camille Bednarik, Cole Eiserman's partner from Boston University, a much more defensive forward, perhaps definitely has less of a high ceiling when it comes to Cole Eiserman, but this is a player I think a lot of Islander fans are not giving enough credit in their prospect pool. I think he has a very good defensive game, and when you watch him play, he can be frustrating at times, but I do think there is offense there waiting to come out. And the even more exciting and surprising name on this list is Jacob Kvasnicka. He is the Islanders' 7th round pick in this year's draft. For him to be in the consideration for this team is absolutely insane. And when we're going to talk about in just a second his production in the WHL, it makes a lot of sense why he is in consideration. And considering this is the short list, it only has 15 forwards, there's a good chance he is going to make this team. In fact, I went through and looked through all these players' names, and I have to imagine if he's made it this far, Kaznika is going to make this team, especially considering he brings a pretty well-rounded game to the table, which makes his scoring even more exciting. But I think it's definitely notable. They are only having 15 forwards. Looking at this point, it's pretty clear the United States knows what they want to do with their forwards. The defense is a lot more of a question mark. They have a lot of compelling prospects there, bringing 11 on defense to take a look. But for the Islanders side, we got to focus on the forwards, the 3 forwards from the Islanders who are likely going to be on this team. And the first one I want to focus on is Jacob Kvasnicka. It's funny, he doesn't even have his profile on HockeyDB, does not have a picture, but this is how much he has really come up as a player. Drafted 202nd overall by the New York Islanders. We didn't really talk about Kaznika a lot when it came to the draft, especially considering everything else that was happening with the Islanders. You have to remember, go back in time, we were making like 3 videos a day. You had the Noah Dobson trade. We were first getting to know Emil Heineman. You also had the Islanders picking 3 times in the first round, picking Daniil Prokhorov in the second round. It makes sense that who you picked in the 7th round kind of went unnoticed, especially when you consider just how many picks the Islanders had compared to other teams. But Jacob Kvasnicka is definitely making Islander fans know his name now, as he is rising the rank of their prospect pool. Look, he's playing on the Pentagon V's in the WHL, and he has 12 goals and 18 assists for 30 points in 25 games. And what's really notable here is I took a look at the team. This is actually an expansion team in the WHL, so he is the best player on his team if you look through the rank of his players. This is basically the only team in the WHL that doesn't really have that many NHL prospects. Yes, it has Kvasnicka, but other than that, it's not like he's playing with a couple second rounders or third rounders on his line or giving him a boost. He's pretty much the highest profile guy on this team, at least who's already been drafted, which really makes his production even more impressive. And you just look at the way he plays. He brings a lot more than just offense, obviously, because when the Islanders drafted him, they weren't really looking all at offense. They're looking at that well-rounded play that allowed him to be successful in the national development team. And we're really seeing this year with a couple prospects. We're going to talk a little more as we get closer to the draft. A couple of these prospects that didn't quite blow up with the national development team in the USHL are really having better showings in the WHL. And perhaps that might be an indictment in the skill level of WHL. or perhaps it's more of an indictment of the U.S. national development team not really seeing enough in these players. And I think for the most part, it is the second half where I just don't think these players were given the roles to shine. Clearly, Kvasnicka had a lot more offensive potential than they thought he did. And for the Islanders, this is really impressive. Again, this is a prospect who was drafted at his age year, so he is just 18 years old. Putting up these numbers, yes, they're not the largest numbers in the WHL, but for a 7th-round pick, this is very impressive. And this player, if he keeps the track, he has a strong chance at becoming an impact prospect for the New York Islanders. Next, we're going to talk in more detail about Camille Bednarik, perhaps one of my favorite underrated prospects for the New York Islanders. I was really happy with what I saw from him when I went to the summer showcase with the Islanders prospects playing against each other. As I said before, I don't love his confidence. This is something he really needs to work on because I think there's more skill in this player. But what you can't take away and what you don't see in the stats, and for the record, 19 points in 40 games for Boston University last season, and now 7 points in 14 games this season. It's not bad. I think the offense gets criticized a bit too much here when it comes to Bednarik. But what doesn't get talked about enough with Bednarik is his well-rounded game. We talk a lot about Danny Nelson and how, while he does put up a decent amount of points in college, the defense is the focus of his game. He is a well-rounded center. Camille Bednarik is a similar type of player where he's killing a lot of penalties, getting some goals on the penalty kill, actually. I remember watching a game where he had a really nice goal on the penalty kill. So this is a player who produces more than just 5-on-5. And for the record, this is the type of player who isn't really getting time on the power play. I think at other colleges he might get some time, but considering he's on Boston University, and we know how dangerous that Boston University power play is, he doesn't really get time there. So the fact that most of his offense does come on 5-on-5, I know I said is not really getting, it's coming from 5-on-5, and then of course special teams when he is playing on the unit down a man. It is impressive what he's doing. I think there is a good fourth-line center in Bednarik, and that might not sound too impressive, but you need players like that. We see organizations like Vancouver who don't draft well in the center position, and it goes all the way down the organization. Having prospects like Bednarik is important for the Islanders, and I think he is definitely getting underrated, especially when it comes to other prospects in the Islanders. Obviously, a system, I think we'd be talking more about Bednarik if it was a weaker system. Because it is such a good system, he kind of gets buried. No, he's not going to be the biggest player in the future, but for years, Casey Cizikas was a very impactful player as a fourth-line center, and I think Bednarik is a similar type of Swiss Army knife, where there is some offense there, but he can really do a lot of things, and he plays with a lot of energy and plays very well defensively. Also, he plays with Cole Eiserman, which gives him some even more use for the Islanders, because one of the best Island prospects in the Islanders system is Cole Eiserman. I think he has been on another level this season. The stats aren't quite showing it yet. He has 10 points in 11 games, 7 goals in 11 games played, so clearly he is more of a goal scorer than a playmaker. But if you've watched the games this season for Boston University, he has been showing more of an element of playmaking in his offense. His line mates have not been really gelling. They've been moving him around as they try to figure out what's going on. Boston University is not having the start they were supposed to, and it's pretty striking considering how many NHL prospects they have. Cole Eiserman has been one of their better producers. I think he has been producing better 5-on-5. Well, he has, because the power play for Boston University has not been clicking as it has in the past. And additionally, I actually found Cole Eiserman was playing incredibly good hockey before his injury. It's just good that he's back from that injury. The first 2 games where he came back, he didn't look all that confident. He had a couple close calls with goals, but he kind of looked like a one-dimensional player in those games. He is back to playing some really good hockey. In his most recent game, he had a goal and an assist, actually assisted a goal for Camille Bednarik, so extra benefit for Islander fans there. But in that game, he was definitely controlling the play way more. One thing you notice when you watch Cole Eiserman, he's generating a ton of shots 5-on-5. Now, he has to work a little bit on shot selection because at points he's just shooting from absolutely everywhere. But I would rather a player who's shooting a bit too much than doesn't shoot enough, especially when you consider what the Islanders already have. I think Cole Eiserman's playing really well, and while the stats are not lighting up the page just yet, I do think he's getting closer to being a goal per game type player player in the NCAA. That's just the type of player he is, and I think more assists are coming, especially once he gets chemistry with a new line. It looks like he plays pretty well with Bednarik. I know last season that was more of a third line, didn't get a lot of ice time, which I didn't like them staying together. Wouldn't really mind Boston University trying them together again to really get the team going, get them both going. It's funny, you have so many prospects on Boston University that you start to root for the school. That's going to do it for this episode of Islanders Digest. Let me know what you think about these three prospects. In particular, what do you think about Kvasnicka? Because this is a player we really have not been talking about that much this season. We're definitely going to talk about him more as a prospect because he has really caught my attention with his production. And again, it's not just production, because one thing you have to note when it comes to the USA program, they have so many good players. They don't just care about scoring. And the United States, more than any other team, really focuses on bringing well-rounded players. That's why Cole Eiserman really struggled to make the team last season. So the fact now that you have players like Camille Bednarik and Kaznika making really on the short list to make this team, it shows you that they have a pretty good all-rounded game. And that's a really good sign when it comes to the Islanders prospect system. But that's going to do it for this episode of Islanders Digest. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. I'm your host, Patrick Nilan. Catch you on the next episode. Let's go, Islanders.